Hello guys, welcome back. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to add color and render your artwork. And we're going to kind of use the things that we talked about in the previous videos, like line quality and how to create form. We're going to talk about those two things mainly in this. And I just want to kind of give you guys insight into how to create like a finished digital artwork. Also, I just want to add that this is not like a set what you should be doing kind of tutorial. This is just an idea to give you guys insight into what you can do to start off, and particularly what I like to do for my style. You can obviously go in any direction you want. You can play around with all of these tools. They're all great, and you can create your own style. Find out what you like doing. But if you want to practice, on the software and kind of understand which tools to use in order to color and shade and stuff like that, and different ways that you can shade as well. This is the video for you. What a lot of artists, especially on Instagram, and like when it comes to digital art, what a lot of artists like to do is have some form of line art. This is not always necessary. There are lots of great artworks without line work, but I think it adds a really nice touch. And I like to do my line art at the beginning. I like to do my line art before I start coloring. You can do it differently. You can do color first. So you can use your paintbrush. You can add color first, and then with your black, you can do the line art on top of it very carefully. But I don't know. I like doing my line art first. I think it helps me out. Okay, so for line art, we're going to use the inking pen tool. This is the inking pen tool. And for something like this, which is not as detailed, I like to have it around like a 12, 13-ish kind of size. I think that's the perfect line quality. And an inking pen is amazing for line art because it literally gives you like the feeling of using an ink pen. Like if you press hard, it gets very thick, but if you just very lightly press it, it gives you these really nice fine lines. Okay, so let's just ink this. Nope, don't want to duplicate layer, I'm gonna do this. And before you ink, you want to turn down your pencil sketch's opacity. I think it just helps you see what you're doing more clearly. You can see I've done a little bit of the line art already. I've done a lot of it off camera, sorry. But yeah, so with line art, it takes a while to get it completely correct, but that's like kind of you don't have to get it completely correct. I think it will still look nice even if you don't. And also, what I wanted to point out was when you're doing line art, keeping line quality in mind is really important. And it depends on what kind of style you're going for as well. So if you're doing more of a cartoon style, For example, if I did like a cartoon, kind of like, I don't know, like a dog or something, then it's important to keep all of the lines kind of similar. Whereas like in terms of line quality, all of them are a little bit similar. But when you're doing something that's a bit more realistic, you want to try to vary your line quality. So the character that I'm kind of going for right now is obviously not realistic. It's very cartoon inspired. So I've kept most of the line qualities similar, but at the same time, there are elements and places where I have kind of thinned out the lines, especially in the hair. I've made it a little bit more fine, like the area where it joins. So yeah, just keep in mind where you want to add more and where you want to add less, and where you want it to be a little bit more subtle in terms of line quality. Okay, so now we can turn off our sketch and we see this. So there is it's very common to hate your line art and absolutely love your sketch more. And this is just because your sketch is going to be way more dynamic than your line art, because your line art is literally just like a single, like it's like single lines, right? Some line art can be really, really beautiful and really dynamic, but there are times like this, for example, where I actually like the sketch more than I like the line art. And that's because of the dynamic element of these like sketch lines. It looks very like, it looks like more is happening. It looks like he has more emotion. But don't worry, like don't let that stop you. We can definitely bring back this dynamic energy by using colors and by using like shades or like shadows. Sorry. Yeah. So let's move on to coloring and adding shadows. Well, I actually really like adding my shadows before, at least my like main shadows, because it gives me an idea of like what the form will kind of look like at the end with just the black and white and the shadows. So okay, so shadows is can be kind of tricky, but I like to use a really basic rule. Just kind of picture where your character or where your object is in. Are they like outside? Or if they're outside, is it daytime or is it nighttime? Like what environment do you want your character to kind of like be in? I think like a safe bet for me at least is to always assume that the character is in a inside. Like I like to just assume that my character is going to be indoors somewhere. So I like using purple as a shadow. Purple is a really great color to add shadows. It appears a lot in natural. It appears a lot in like natural shadows, especially when there is cooler light. Hence, like, you know, either nighttime or sometimes being indoors with like a cooler light. But if you want to draw them in like daytime, dark orange, or not a brown, but like a dark orange is a good idea. Like kind of like this. That's a great highlight color. Shadow color. So yeah, I like to use these two and kind of mix and match. Even dark blue can be great sometimes as a shadow color. So yeah, these are kind of the colors that I personally like to go with. And today I'm just gonna stick with my usual purple. So yeah, so you want to I like to do my shadows with just inking pen, and I kind of like go over where the shadows might be. And don't worry, I know it looks really bad. Oh, remember to do this on another layer. That is very important. So yeah, So I've started coloring. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, I'm just adding the colors to the parts where I know there's going to be shadows. So how do you so you might ask, like, how are you supposed to know where the shadows are meant to be? Well, honestly, I feel like it will come with practice. You'll kind of know where shadows fall, especially in cartoons. When it comes to realism, do not use this. Shadows do not fall like this in real life. But for cartoons, it's like, pretty much where there's like a ridge or something like that, it's a safe bet to add a shadow there. So yeah, usually there's a little bit of shadow under the eyes. Sometimes there's a shadow here. We can turn on the opacity and then see what the shadow is actually like, and then we can erase, and it'll be fine. There's a ridge here, so I'm gonna add a little bit of a shadow here. I know it looks super whack right now, but it will look better. And I don't know if there's a shadow on here, but let's just add it for fun. Be fine. So yeah. Also, like, while I'm just adding all these shadows, I wanted to talk super quickly about like where you can actually apply and work with digital art like mediums, and where you might want to, if you want to like post it on Instagram and stuff like that, like how you can like maximize your like just never mind, just cut that. I'm not gonna talk about that right now. I'm too busy with this. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so I've added like a little bit of a shadow there, and I thought that there might be like a little bit of shadow here. And I'm just like, as you can see, I'm just going back with my eraser tool and just fixing it. And I like my shadows to be pretty prominent, as you saw in my sketching as well. I made my shadows pretty prominent. It's the same thing with this. Like I want to make it more prominent and kind of like have that cartoon aesthetic to it. Okay. So now that the shadows are done, we can like manipulate them and make them darker or softer or whatever. So I'm just going to duplicate this layer, and I'm going to show you another way that you can make these shadows to be a little bit more realistic if that's your style. So what I like to do, so there's two ways of doing it. One is using a blur tool and kind of just like blurring out the edges to make it kind of blend seamlessly into the drawing or into the color. But this, I don't know, like this can get a little bit, this can become like a little bit too blurry, and again, like a good digital illustration, especially character illustration, is really dynamic. And I mean, I'm not saying it's like a general rule, but it's captivating when every aspect of the drawing has this like dynamic element to it. And when you make it super blurry, and I'll insert some images of some artworks that I've done in the past as well that are not that kind of like use this blur effect way too much. It looks a little tacky. So that's why I kind of stay away from it and make it just square and kind of like stylize it. Or what you can do, what I really like to do is I like to use this tool. It's called a synthetic flat brush, brush 2 actually. And I make the size like kind of like the same as my inking pen. and I make the flow like really low. I make it a low percentage, and I make the strength a really low percentage as well. And this brush, it's really cool. It kind of acts like an acrylic, like not an acrylic. Yeah, I guess like an acrylic or like an oil paintbrush. Like that's kind of what it reminds me of. And it blends and it makes this like really interesting like paint-like effect. And I like this way more than the blur tool. This is what this brush does. So you can kind of see like it's blending a little bit more into it, but it's not like tacky where it's like a blur. It's more of like a paintbrush effect, you know? And that looks really cool. I really like this tool, and I use it a lot in my recent works. So yeah, it creates that really nice blur, and even here. Yeah. So this is just like another tool that you can use, and it really helps create like the shadows, and yeah, and it looks a lot better than this, like, doesn't it? Like, I know it's unclean, but I think it adds a little bit more of a dynamic element than the blur tool. So yeah, these are just options that you can use, and it's really fun to play around with these and mix and match these, because it gives you different results, and it gives you really cool, you know, like even this is cool, like layering it on top of each other, like that's kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, okay. These are just like a couple different ways that you can create shadows on Sketchbook. Okay, so let's move on to color. So when you're coloring, you want to definitely go under your line art. You can go over as well if you're going for more of like a line art, more of like a, not really line art kind of look, if you're going for more of like a standard colored look. But anyway, yeah, so I just pick my color, you know, pick my paintbrush, and just paint. You can paint the entire thing. And remember that even if you make a mistake and say like it goes out, like don't worry, like it doesn't matter. Like you can erase it. That's what the erase tool is for. And you need to erase anyway. So just, you know, go ham. Make mistakes if you need to. Okay, yeah. So we've put in the color, and you can see with the color now, the shadows look way more realistic. Okay, so I'm just gonna erase all of the kind of unneeded parts of the skin tone. Okay, another thing I should probably point out before I continue is it's a really good idea to work in different layers. So for example, I have this layer open for the skin tone, and I'm gonna keep only the skin on this layer, on layer 6. I'm gonna keep just the skin. It would be very great if you guys could like label your layers as well, but like a lot of the times it just isn't like that realistic, and it's completely okay if you, I don't like, forget a couple names, or like, you know, don't end up labeling them. That's okay. It's just sometimes it can be a work in the end. Okay, yeah, so I'm just gonna finish coloring. Okay. Alright, so now I've kind of added a little bit more of a, I've added all the colors that I wanted to add, the base colors. I've added a little bit of a cheekbone, a blush. I've added a bit of a blush. I've added the shadows. And now you can kind of play around with how much. So this is what the base looks like without the shadows added. And I can add the shadows and I can see, you know, how much of it I like. And something that's also really cool that you can do is you can actually go to this tool, which is a color picker. And if you set it on a little bit of a lower, like a color fill, you can actually change the color. Actually, this may not be a good idea because the blend doesn't actually come in with the color. But you can change it. For example, if I wanted to go with this one, with the more rigid highlight, I can actually change the highlight color or the shadow color. And it kind of creates like a whole different look. So we talked about like the orange, like the dark orange, or like the kind of like reddish low light, and this is what it looks like. You see, it's more of like a daytime, lighting. Yeah, this is pretty cool, like a pink. But I like purple, so I'm gonna stick with that. And one more thing that we can do to add color that I really like to do is create like this overlay of a pink or of like a blue or something, and I can like erase out the true highlights. I'm gonna actually do a blue and just see what that's like. This is like a technique that I've kind of been using because I find that it's a lot easier to create like highlights than it is to make the shadows. So these are just like, you can add like your true highlights using this, and you can erase and kind of like add highlights, just like play around with what colors you like the best. I don't really like that. There's probably gonna be a highlight there. So another thing that you can use is the soft eraser tool, and this is a really cool eraser. It just slightly erases what you have. So I like to go over with this tool, and it's really cool. It just like kind of helps you blend in. This is actually really cool. It kind of looks like he's like looking at something that's like glowing. That's a really cool like lighting effect. So for something like that, this part would also be lighter. I like where this is kind of going. So I'm gonna stick with this, and I'm gonna show you guys another kind of cool highlight that you can do after I clean this up a little bit. So now you can see it creates a really like dramatic, kind of like scary like look, which is really awesome. And then we can actually drag our line art to the top. Oh, actually, I don't know how I feel about that. I like the line art being. You can play around with the order of things too. I think I actually prefer that. I'm gonna delete the. Okay. So yeah, this is just super dramatic, super cool. What we can do if you want to, like maybe add color, maybe I want to add like a little bit of like a blue glow. I can open a layer underneath the you know, like the big mask layer, the big kind of shadow layer, and you can add like just a tiny little bit of a blue like light. And don't worry, we're gonna make this look a lot better. So now it kind of looks like he's like looking at something that's, I don't know, kind of like that has like a blue glow to it, which is a really cool idea. Alternatively, you could just make this entire thing blue and kind of just like erase out. Actually, no, that's like a waste of time. This is a lot better of a method. You can even make it really sharp by erasing it. So yeah, and this gives you a really cool, interesting lighting technique. And you can obviously play around with this. You can make it whatever color you want, whatever, you know, whatever kind of look that you're going for. This is just like an example. I'm just gonna, and then obviously everything that you do, you can clean up. You can clean up by just going onto the layer, color picking, and then just like cleaning up that way. Like for example, I don't really like how the glasses are looking here, so I'm just going to tidy that up a little bit, make it a little bit more defined. And yeah. And then obviously now it's too defined, so I can go back in with my eraser tool, the soft eraser at least, sorry, and then kind of like smudge that away. And now it looks pretty cool. Now it looks yeah. I'm just trying something out. It's really important to like play around with these things when you're making. Oops. Okay, let's just make it a little simpler for right now. This is, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just making it a little too complicated, but I wanted to create like a kind of like a backlight for this light to exist. Like a kind of like a reflection, like it's coming off of his, like it's coming from the background onto his body kind of thing. So let's see if we can kind of accomplish that. Yeah, I like that. That looks kind of cool. But it's not that color that we wanted. Just make it a bit more blue, that's fine. It's not color picking correctly because we have different layers on top of it that are not letting the color come through as nicely. But yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like that. Can make it a bit more rigid. Again, like I think like the best kind of digital art really comes from experimentation. There are thousands of different brushes that you can use, and that just results in thousands of different ways that you can use those brushes, which makes for some really, really interesting results. So, like, don't be afraid to just mess around with the software, especially at first, while you're trying to, like, find your style. But even if you kind of know what you're going for, just keep looking at, you know, the different like texture tools, what they do, and how you can use them to make your work look better. So yeah, this is kind of like the base of the drawing that I'm making. From here, the next step would be to add highlights. I'm not gonna get into that too much for the lack of time, but I will show you guys the end product of what I come up with. But another really cool trick that I'm going to teach you guys before I end this is using texture tools, as I've been talking about as I've been talking about the whole time. So texture tools like these are great because it makes your drawing super dynamic, and it gives it a bit of a character. So I like to use this one. It's called Scratches, and it's great because it adds this like almost like broken TV, like static kind of feel to the work, and yeah, I think it's really cool. It adds a really interesting texture to it. But if you're on Procreate, I know that Procreate has some amazing textures as well, and you can purchase textures from other artists that have made their own textures and their own brushes, which are also amazing. They're great. But yeah, for like the most simple, I guess, like texture use is this one is what I like, the Scratches brush. So yeah, I just do that on another layer, and then I can lower the opacity, and it gives this really cool like staticky kind of texture to the artwork. Again, just erase to clean up, and it's done. Right. So this is kind of like the final product. Obviously, there's a lot more. There's way more that we could do to this. Like we could add highlights, especially to the hair, and stuff like that. But for the sake of keeping it really simple and basic, this is kind of what I do. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something useful.